to have to deal with it. But we're joined now by Vann McElroy, former Baylor defensive back, longtime Raider, and this is the first person from the Raiders I've talked to since I sat as a fan at the Cowboys-Raiders game and listened to those fans in Arlington, no less, just go Raiders, and know that if you're an opponent, you got to hate it, and if you're a fan of the other team, you're a fan of the Raiders, you're going to love it. If you're a Raider, you got to love it. Vann, thanks so much for joining us today. Smokey's out; he's under the weather, but certainly glad to always talk to you. First off, just curious your thoughts on the defensive performance that Dave Aranda pulled off with your Bears on Saturday night in New Orleans.
Well, hello, guys, and thank you for having me on, giving me a shout, and having an opportunity to visit with you guys. To start off with, on the Raider-Dallas game, there were also a group of people from Uvalde, Texas, that were there. So they had their Uvalde Coyotes shirts and everything on too. So, okay, to the most important part here. The defense that Baylor has right now is just, in my opinion, outstanding. I think from top to bottom, what I mean by that is your D-line all the way to the secondary. I think they play well together. I think they're aggressive. They do some things up front that are really good, and they have the personnel. As I look at it and see the players to sort of pull some of those things off. So it is excellent.
Vann, to see Dave Aranda and what he did coming in, obviously not the best situation walking into COVID, and the program, I think the players were probably a little bit down after yet another coaching change. They'd finally gotten to a point where they were winning games again, and then all right, here goes now a coach leaves again, and here comes this really quiet Aranda guy, and then they had this first year where they don't really have an opportunity to get to know him that well, but you see now where having that full offseason certainly helped. He makes some coaching changes, brings in some guys, and just the year overall. I mean, to go from 2 wins in the COVID year to 12 wins, a school record, Sugar Bowl, Big 12 champs. I mean, just an unbelievable run. Your thoughts on just kind of the total package of 2021 for Baylor?
I think he did it, to be quite honest, I'm shocked. I mean, I sat there and watched. Everybody watched what was going on, and then just the difficulties, certainly that were going on at Baylor. Then lose a guy and the players, and just being a smaller school. I mean, and the recruiting and all of those things, and so you sit there and you go through a season, and you're going, okay, where's this headed? And then all of a sudden this happens, and it really is outstanding. It's just awesome, and the idea of this head coach and what he has accomplished, I think, is up there with anyone because of what he got into and how quickly he has really turned this thing around. And I think he's done something, very well from the standpoint of, they did it with defense. Not to say their offense, the running back, the guys can't make some plays. I mean, that's no question they can, but it's not what I would call just an explosive offense where you're throwing the ball everywhere, where you just, it's Air Coryell type of stuff going on. It is straight at you. They do a few little things, but you can they sort of tell you, listen, this is what we're kind of do, and you have to stop it type thing on offense. But on defense, that D-line, the pressure they put on the quarterback, I wish I would have had a chance to be around Woods a little bit, get my hands on him a couple of years. I think the guy should have had 8 to 10 interceptions. I really do. He has that kind of talent. But no, I think that's what he did. That was probably the smartest part of this whole deal. Is said, you know what, I got to get my defense together. If I get that done, I have players and athletes on the offense. We'll make it work. And I think he did a great job with that.
You mentioned JT Woods. I was just about to ask you about him. If I had to put the player that would jump out at me as the one Vann McElroy would probably identify with, it would be JT Woods, a guy who can catch the ball in the secondary and who's not afraid to lower that shoulder. What do you think his NFL prospects are as far as, I'm sure he's an NFL player, but where do you think he fits in draft-wise and career-wise?
We'll see. I think, size, we'll see what he runs. And both those things kind of go together. Obviously, if his speed can be what it needs to be for the draft. And I say the draft because once it's over, it doesn't really matter. I mean, you still have to run, and he can run. But we'll see. Whatever that 40 times is going to be, it's going to be. But I think that, what he does have with his athleticism that a lot of guys don't have, especially sometimes you find your speed guys. I mean, I played against the greatest, Willie Galtz of the world. I can go down the list of all the speed guys that are out there. They tend to be a little stiff, and and they're not super instinctive. But this guy is really instinctive, and I've just watched him, and that's what I was saying from my own perspective. I think there are some things that he can do that will really kick his instincts in even more, to where as good as he is at finding the ball, his angles to go to the ball, and I'm using words, guys, that people don't really understand. They may think they do, but they don't. Those things were outstanding when I watched this guy.
Yeah, JT's he's a tremendous player, and I'm very excited. I know he's playing in one of the All-Star games. I forget which one off the top of my head, but he's going to have that opportunity as well. What do you think it means in terms of the Big 12 with the whole Texas and Oklahoma news over the summer? I'm not sure what your thoughts were on that time. At that time, but to see Baylor go out and win 12 games, to see Oklahoma State go out, they win 12 games. I mean, Oklahoma, they're still in the Big 12. They finished on a high note despite their whole coaching situation there with Lincoln Riley towards the end. K-State gets a win last night. I mean, the Big 12, in the face of a very uncertain summer just a few months ago, how do you think the conference kind of followed that up with this following season, and what do you think the prospects are moving forward for the Big 12?
I think they're great. I really do. I think they have the players. They have, and you really look at it, and you look at these coaches, and they may not just name-wise, just really blow people over, but these are good coaches. I mean, they really, really are, and they bring something special to that college and to those group of guys. Certainly with Aranda here at Baylor, but the other colleges the same way. And K-State is one of those places that has always had players. Even when I owned my agency, and we'd go to K-State because no one wanted to go in there. It's hard to get to. So we would go because they were always players. I mean, Jordy Nelson, I can go down the list of guys that came out of there. They're just great players. But that program seemingly has a way of getting those players in there that can play well, and then they coach them up and do extremely well. So those teams, I think, are great teams to have in the Big 12. I think they proved the point this year. Baylor obviously doing what it did for the being what was their ranking? What did they ended up? Have they come out with that yet, or?
No, that'll come out after the national title game, but I'm thinking they're going to be top 5 for the first time ever in the final poll.
I would think so. I mean, think about that. Here's a team that could barely win or find itself a year ago, and now it's top 5. Plus, what does that do for Aranda's recruiting class? I mean, it just, all those things are so beneficial to he and his coaches and what they're trying to accomplish. And so I just see nothing but great things for the Big 12. I see nothing but great things for Baylor going ahead. And, I think what they've established on defense, and we certainly did. And I look at our defense that we had, back in the day, the D-line of Charles Benson, Joe Campbell, Henry Mellentree, Max McGarry, Tommy Tabor. I mean, those guys, we had obviously Singletary in the middle, Doak Fields and Lester Ward. And then in the back, it was just an unbelievable secondary back there with the guys we had. And so I just think that they have got 11 guys on the field. Obviously, they have others that can come in, but they've got people out there in those most important positions that I think they continue to win, even if the offense struggles at times. I really do.
You say Mike Singletary, and I think of you and Mike Singletary in the same defense and the way that you guys hit so hard. There's probably about a 12-yard zone of every single play that if I was running a slant or a post, I would not want to be in. Just not worth it to me in my ribs.
It shouldn't be, and that is the whole point of it. I know for me and Mike and I talked a little bit about it. Just the film of what you might want to see the opposing team there are times I might sacrifice a late hit, get a flag just to let the guys watching the film see that you're a little off, things aren't just completely straight with that guy back there. And so that was all fine with me. But when you establish, the rule of that, and they're hard because from a safety's perspective, if you're going to suck down on that quick slant, you've got to be very, very clear that's where the guy is going to throw the ball, or else you're going to have the backside run a deep post, and then you're in trouble. So all those things come together. I'm not going to kill y'all on just reading and understanding that, but the bottom line is, the idea of hitting these guys when they come in the middle certainly plays well for teams that are watching that. Those guys see that, they realize it, and there are guys that I've watched where they're coming in and the ball's right to them, they just drop it because they think they're going to get crushed. So yeah, and Mike, obviously, Mike, Mike is Mike. I was scared of him, and I was on his team.
Yeah, you got to send them. You got to send a little warning shot, and then they're a little bit more hesitant after that. There's no doubt about that. Vann, I know that there's other things we'll probably like Raiders and stuff that we'll get to, but one more thing about Baylor football. You kind of touched on it a little bit, but just Dave Aranda, watching him. Obviously he's not like some big personality. He's a very quiet guy. Was very quiet and reserved, and we only got to really talk to him over Zoom last year. But he definitely opened up and kind of showed more of that personality. And I don't know, he's a very unique guy. Obviously, super intelligent when it comes to the football side of things, but also unique, off the field as well. But just what have been kind of your thoughts from first seeing him as a hire and getting to know about him to now how you've seen him kind of evolve over the last year and a half or so? What have been your impressions on the growth of Dave Aranda as a still young head football coach?
I think there's a couple of things that would stand out to me. First off, he is a quiet man, but within that, I think number one, he has a plan, and I think he understands his plan, and he knows how to implement his plan. And I think that silence in there is just part of that he knows what he's doing. He doesn't have to go blab it to everybody. The other part of it is that in that, the guys have watched him now for a year and a half, and they really, really, really do trust him. That is evident to me as I watch the players. I can go back to Grant Tapp and guys just trusted this guy. And I can tell you, there are coaches around that they're great coaches, but guys don't totally trust them. It's interesting, but it's very clear to me that the players trust this man, and he has a plan. And so when you get both those things going on, everything becomes very clear. And that's the difficult part sometimes when you're coming into a place like Baylor where you've lost coaches, you've had issues, or the young men. And again, these are young guys, they're teenagers, some of them. And so they're coming into something, and they've had parents around, they've had people they can trust. Now they're going somewhere, what's going to happen? And all of a sudden they have this man come in their life, and they feel good about that. And so it allows them, and I know I don't want to not trying to get too deep here because I'm not a real deep guy, but it allows them to play their best game. But when they can trust somebody and they know the plan.
Vann, I'm curious your thoughts on name, image, and likeness. Coming from the background that you do as not only a college player at one time in your life, but also an agent who, for a long time, you were allowed to come and talk to players on, what their like little agent days or the windows where you can talk to guys as they try to make that decision. And now it's wide open. It's the Wild West with name, image, and likeness. And how you think that student athletes and players should handle that kind of business going forward as they get into it and get those kind of opportunities.
Guys, I will say this, from my perspective, it's complicated, and only time will tell how all that will play out, because the egos become very large in the NFL, and part of that obviously has becomes a very me situation because it's all about money. And in those teams, and matter of fact, we just lost a guy that was just really, really good at this, and that was John Madden, and watching him and how he handled a team. But also my coach, Tom Flores, who I was very fortunate, able to fly up, brought us a bunch of guys up to Canton to see his induction and be with him. but these men were men that and why I bring in the word trust in a big way, and really had a way of crushing, making sure that ego of the player wasn't involved. But today, the dollars are so large, and my concern is from the college perspective. First off, I agree with it. People have no clue how much time the athlete has to put into this game, and then also go to school. I mean, it is incredibly crazy the hours that go in a day for all of this stuff. It used to be waking up at 6, going to an early morning, workout, whatever it may be, so you could get to school. And then you had afternoon, and it went all day. And then the evening, you had, a study hall, and it was just an all day deal. And when some of these guys bring a claim to the school, because they do, okay, and I get it. I understand both parts. The school is also giving them free education, which is huge. They don't have to come out of pocket for it. So where does it all end? I guess in my eyes, I don't know where it ends at. I don't know the possible problems it creates with, first off, the individual who begins to think they're better than the team. And the other part is those elements of society that begin to come in and make it ugly. That I don't know how that's going to all end up playing out. It's just to me it's very complicated. They've opened this thing up and then used the right word, the Wild Wild West. I mean, it could really be that way. Only time will tell. I'm hoping, for me, when I came in to see a player from the agent perspective, I was very open with the parents and the player that, you have to understand, how you're going to make your money. And that's being a great player. Forget all this other junk. Forget all the marketing and everything. That's wonderful. Those things can get done. You can have a part in that. But if you do not play on the field each and every play, you commit yourself to your team, all those types of things, all that stuff will never happen. It's a bunch of junk. So I'm hoping that these guys, as they come into this, certainly there will be those that can sit them down and have those conversations with them and try to keep them focused on the most important thing in this whole process. And all this other stuff is just that. It's stuff. It's great. You'll be able to make some money off of it, help your parents, whatever it may be. Wonderful. But understand it for what it is. I don't know if I made any sense with that, but there you go.
Oh, yeah.
No, it makes a lot of sense, and we've wondered about that as well. And like you said, with anything else out there in the world, there's always going to be some seedy characters, wanting to get involved, and you got to be wary of that. So yeah, who knows where it's going, but it definitely.
Does it include the parents? Did the parents get involved now? Do they? Do you have to pay? It has the potential, guys, to get so sticky, and I just hope it doesn't. And I do think that the teams will need someone maybe simply assigned to that, to making sure the players, are in line. And when I mean in line, I'm just meaning that they're all understanding, constantly about the most important part of this thing, their education, which it is. It really is, but their commitment to team and their play, because all of those things ultimately will get them where they want to be. If you have the ability to play in the NFL, man, play your tail off. You do well and you have those, those assets, those skill sets, then you're going to go play and you're going to make a ton of money. Don't forget about that in trying to get, $1,000 for something.
Right. Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. Just a moment ago, you mentioned John Madden, obviously, fortunately passed away just a few days back, and it was bizarre, Vann. They had just done the documentary, and I saw where apparently he did have a chance to catch that actually just a couple of days before he did pass away. But we actually had Tom Flores on the show afterwards to talk about it a little bit. Your thoughts on John Madden, his place in the game of football, and his passing just a little over a week ago?
I think it's a big loss for the NFL. What he has done for the league is he has done as much for the league as anyone. I mean, all of the off the field things that were created, and what have you, were just awesome. But his ability to kind of change how commentators actually, try to get football over to the common person who's watching it on TV now. I mean, he really broke it down for people to help them understand, what that receiver was looking at, what shoulder he was going at, depending on what route they were running at, or what they were doing from a blitz perspective. If a guy, and I'll just say this, Baylor did an excellent job of what they did in their pass rush, and it's with these guys. I mean, it was just amazing. But Altu would come in, basically get that guard, kind of nudge that tackle a little bit. And then the linebacker would come around, or the D end would come around in a sort of a swing or a loop and come around him. And it was wide open the whole game. I mean, they sacked this guy 10 times?
10 times,
Yeah, they could never figure it out, But things like that, he was really good at explaining and helping people, helping you or the public understand just what was going on the D-line. He had a way, common sense of talking to the player. I wouldn't call John an intellect. I don't think he would suggest that. He was a common sense guy, and he approached it that way. He was a good listener. And here again, what makes a great coach is a man that the guys, and again, most of the guys that go play are very street smart. You know what I'm saying? I mean, they get it. And it may not always be it may not work out the way they want it to, but they understand someone who's honest with them. And John was that guy. I mean, you just went there and you felt like he was being super straight with you, really honest, and the guy was funny as could be. I mean, it was just, he had all of those characteristics of a guy, that could get players at that level, and at that ego, if you will, to really come together and play really well. And so it's going to be a guy I think that's really going to be missed in the league. And he's a great guy, man. I enjoyed him. Good man.
Yeah, I'll tell you this. I don't think he just changed the way color commentators do in football. I think he changed it in all sports. If you just look at like pre-Madden, post-Madden, how people did color commentary in sports, he made it very okay to have fun and kick back and not just talk about things that were over people's head. Like, he never talked that over anybody's head. I don't think you knew him, but I mean, I didn't know him, but just watching him, he could not, if he tried, talk over someone's head. It was not in his DNA. And now you've got, a generation of commentators in sports that know, like, look, you're not talking to just coaches and players. You're talking to fans. Talk to fans. Enjoy it. Have fun. Make it fun for them.
And even more so, you're talking now to more women. There are more women watching the game and becoming a part of the game, or whether it be referees or whatever, but they've worked hard to try to bring that group of people into the game, and he literally would bring it down. That's probably not the proper way to say that, down to level, but at a level where someone who really doesn't care that much about football could really understand it, And so it was all levels of this is where he came from, I think, and what he's really done for the sport. And goodness gracious, we're going to miss him and his whole bus thing and his whole, I mean, when he was around, guys, you just knew he was there. It was an aura about him, and it wasn't because he was popping off about himself or coming in trying to make everybody, hey, I'm here, guys. You just kind of knew he was there because you just felt good about yourself, and those guys, again, that are that way. And again, I bring it back a little bit to Tom Forrest and Aranda, a little bit. They have a unique ability when they can get a group of guys like that to come together and play together and win. They have a unique ability to make you feel good about yourself. And it doesn't matter your situation. When you're standing there talking to them, they're not talking down to you. They're not doing any of that stuff. They make you feel important, and everything they're saying, you actually do listen to. It's hard to explain that type of person, but when around them, they're just special, and you kind of want to be around them. I don't know if I'm making any sense, but it's just incredible the way these men can come about in life. And you look out there and go, oh, wow, man, they won a lot of games. That coach did really well. All that one. Well, there was a reason they did that, and there was a reason they had great success, whether it's Grant Taft, whether it's Aranda, whomever it may be. For the most part, these men are men that allow players to get close to them and feel confident and comfortable about being around.
Vann, you talked about, we touched on his name a couple of times now, Tom Flores, and I mentioned that he was with us last week to talk about the passing of Coach Madden, but we did get a chance to talk to him before and also, after the big Hall of Fame announcement a few months ago. What did that mean to you to see Tom Flores finally get that Hall of Fame call?
Oh, everything, because the guy deserved it. The guy was a stud, and he was a quiet man. A lot like Aranda a little bit. I mean, he was just quiet, kind of. I mean, he wasn't, John was boisterous and fun, and Tom was kind of quiet, but still had that same feel about him. You just, again, like I said a while ago, you just felt real good about yourself when you went and you were next to him. You left feeling very confident in who you were and what you're trying to do, and so that part of it is just the guy was a stud. He deserved it. It was fortunate for me. He actually, my ninth season, I got traded up to Seattle, and I joke about it sometimes. I was asked to say a few words up there when we were there, and I just thanked him for trading for me up to Seattle and put me on scholarship for a couple of years, because that's kind of what he did. I mean, I was able to go out there and make some plays for him, and interception here or there and a fumble here or there, whatever, some tackles. But for the most part, it is what it is, and it was good. And but he was just really good to me, and so I just really think a lot of the man and what he stands for. So that was fun going up there and seeing a lot of the those guys that are there, that just the guys coming back that were on that team. And we talk about teams. That Raider team, guys, is one of the most incredible group of athletes and players you'd ever want to be around. Let's see, in the Super Bowl year in '82, there were 9 of those guys went to the Pro Bowl, and that's pretty amazing. 3 guys and 3 guys in one secondary went to the Pro Bowl, and I laugh because I don't know if the players just kind of just sucked it up and said, I'm sorry, we have to vote for all 3 of these guys. We just have to. Because, you sit there as a player on another team going, man, 3 of these guys on the same team going, I can't do that. And it just gets kind of funny. And then to be honest with you, the other guy, Mike Davis, in our secondary, should have gone. But there's no way they could vote for all 4 of us, But and see that. And so with Tom, with John, I know I'm getting ready to head up to Houston here, head over to Houston here in a couple of days. We just lost a good player and teammate with the Raiders, Bruce Davis, one of the largest human beings on the planet, but he was an offensive tackle and a really good man. And so that makes 2 this year, Mike Davis, who was a strong safety, and Bruce Davis. Both those guys are just good guys and wonderful guys. And talking to Walter and Cedric and Mac and Walter Abercrombie, and those guys, and we have a texting group every once in a while. We text a little bit, and we're getting old, and life is short, and we all need to get our act together and enjoy the short time that we have left, and make sure we're around each other. And that's important. And it's certainly, guys, y'all calling and talking about these coaches and just different teams. I'll be 62 in January. I can't even believe I said the word number 62. It's just insane. It is just insane. And so, but that's what it is. And so, but it certainly makes me look at that, all of those things, the players, the coaches, and just feel so blessed to have been around the Tafts, the Singletaries, the Abercrombies. Walter and I were captains together there at Baylor, and just all those guys. We were just so close and so tight, and I guess it's synonymous with having a lot of success. You know, we had a lot of success because we're probably close. That's part of it, and there were some really talented players there too. So all of those things it's just, man, I look at that, and y'all mentioned, you know, Tom and that stuff. It just makes me realize how blessed I am to have been around those types of guys, man. It really was.
Vann, we could talk to you for 4 hours. Honestly, It's been great talking to you. Thanks for hopping on the show. Really great taking down memory lane. And look, if you're up next year for a game, we'll get you in the studio so you can see our new digs and all that. But thank you so much for hopping on the show and enjoy the new year as much as you can. That was great to hear. That's a great message to end the interview on, about spending more time with people, because, you know, the last couple of years we haven't gotten to, and we should really reach out and enjoy the time that we're here.
One other question, guys. Has it gotten below 90 degrees there yet?
Yeah, it has actually. We did have a little bit of a cold front, but I think it's like 70 today. So it's.
Dude, I'm down here in Uvalde, man. It's amazing. I mean, it's like, goodness gracious. We were just laughing the other day. So anyway, I'm rambling now. So thank you. It's all good, man. Love you guys. And by the way, Walter, I talked to him earlier today. I got to take Ken Cedric fishing. I promised I would. So we'll be doing that sometime in the spring. And goodness gracious, those guys are always on me. So it's all good. Thank you.
All right, Vann, thank you so much. That's Vann McElroy, former Baylor's and Raiders DB, with us, and a longtime NFL agent as well. Craig, such a great perspective on so many different things that you can go across the board because of his life experience.
Yeah, you know, if we had had him on a little longer, I would ask him just his thoughts on the Raiders being in Vegas now and kind of how they've settled in there, and, you know, just being somebody who was a part of the old regime. You know, that's got to be awfully interesting just to see them in that environment, you know, after all the years in LA and Oakland. But yeah, I mean, clearly just you could do an hour podcast with him easily on just the Raiders time period or just the NFL time period, but certainly on just the Baylor time period as well. And, you know, cool to hear his perspective on Dave Aranda and on, you know, JT Woods. I'm very excited to see what JT's NFL stock looks like. One thing I know is JT's going to be good regardless of what happens in football. I mean, football's obviously going to bring the most money right away, but a very intelligent young man that truly you don't have to worry about life after football with him. And I think that's the case with a lot of these guys, which, you know, I think a lot of people probably look at their teams like, oh, it's just nothing but good guys. And go, you know, everybody kind of feels that way for the most part. But, like, you really can truly say that about a lot of these players on this Baylor team this year, because we've watched them now for the last 5 years, like, grow up and go through more than some go through in a lifetime. And they come out of the wash that much better for it. And JT is definitely one of those guys. But, yeah, with his size, you know, like 6'2"-ish, with his speed, which I'm curious to see exactly what that is, you know, 40 time-wise in a combine setting and all that. But he's going to do well for himself. I have no doubts that JT will do well for himself and get an NFL shot. And, you know, I'm looking forward to now, and hopefully, here in the next, you know, few weeks, everything cleans up enough that where we get to have that big full-blown NFL Pro Day with the players, because they've been kind of having this in the works now for a couple of years, where you looked ahead and you thought, well, all right, a couple of years ago they had, you know,
James Lynch.
James Lynch was a big deal, you know, but Bravion Roy, James Lynch, you know, those types of guys. And then last year it was kind of hit or miss, you know, wasn't a huge crowd for the guys, but there was a couple players obviously. But this year though, I mean, between Abram Smith and Terrell Bernard and Jalen Petrie and JT Woods and, you know, so on and so forth, Tyquan Thornton, I'm very hopeful that we get to see a full-blown, you know, coaches can show up in Waco and watch these guys work out, open to the public type of pro day, because this one's, like I said, been in the works for a while, and I think it would be a real show and a real treat with the amount of people that would be interested in coming and checking out this roster.
Yeah, JT Woods is one of those guys who – to me, especially you would want, because of everything you said about his character too. And like, yeah, so if he winds up being a 4th-round draft pick because of his 40 time, it's only because of his 40 time. Like that's kind of your thing, because he can catch everything that comes at him. He's shown that. He's got separation speed, and then he's run some picks back. Plus, I mean, I mean, look, he lays the wood when he hits, and that's what you want to see.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't see targeting penalties with him, so he knows how to do it right. So he's someone who you fear, but it's not going to be, helmet to helmet and all that stuff. So there's not too many knocks on JT Woods. Like Vann said it's just going to be about how he runs for the draft alone.
Yeah.
After that, you know what kind of football player he is. Absolutely. Okay, we'll take a break right here. On the other side, we'll come back. We had so long with Pat Nunley, or not with Pat Nunley. We got Pat Nunley on the other side, but so long with Vann McElroy, but it was all great stuff. And again, we could have gone forever with him. But Pat Nunley